Hi guys, this is Mrs. Tompkins here. We're going to look today at graphing linear functions, but our focus isn't really going to be on graphing yet. We will get to that, but today we're going to focus on how do we solve a function in two different forms. Today's lesson applies to the standard of applying function notation. So the first thing I want you to know is function notation is just another way to write an equation. It is very similar to that of slope-intercept form, which you may be familiar with, but function notation allows you to substitute several different situations or variables or numbers in for x to get specific ordered pairs. We don't read this, so function notation is f and then parentheses x equals mx plus b. We read this as f of x. It does not mean f times x. I know in algebra and in math, we've learned that the parentheses represent multiplication, but when we're dealing with functions and it shows f parentheses x, or maybe it's going to show g parentheses x, that is read as f of x, which is just another way for what we're used to of using the name for y. So the first problem we're going to look at today is reading that f of x is equal to 3x minus 15 when x is negative 3. So when we see this, what we want to do is we want to substitute negative 3 in for x. As we substitute negative 3 in for x, we rewrite our problem as f of negative 3 is equal to 3 times negative 3 minus 15. So when we read this, you might think, okay, are we solving an equation? What are we doing? Well, what we're going to do is when it tells us specifically that x is equal to something, we're going to substitute this negative 3 in for where x was, and then we're just going to simplify this by using our order of operations. This side over here doesn't mean anything to us. It's just how we say the function. So we're going to go ahead and do 3 times negative 3, which gives us negative 9, and then negative 9 minus 15 gives us an answer of negative 24. So then our final answer is read as when f of x, when f of negative 3, when x is negative 3, we get an answer of negative 24. All right, let's take a look at another one. So this one shows us f of x is equal to 2x plus 4. Now solve when x equals 5. So we're going to call this when the function is 5. So when x is 5, what do we get? We're going to do 2 times 5 because we're substituting this 5 in the place of x. So we're going to do 2 times 5 plus 4. Well, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 4 gives us 14. So our answer on this one would be when the function is 5, our answer is 14. So our answer that we're looking for here is 14. Now there will be some times in some problems where you have to solve for several different numbers. So when in this case, we have when x is negative 2, or when it's 0, or when it's 3. So the function is super useful when we get to use it for several different scenarios. So in this case, we have to solve, and notice this one doesn't say f of x, it has the variable h, or it has the function h. So we're going to call this h of x. So we're going to solve this as h is negative 2, where we substitute negative 2 in for x, and then we solve. So 2.25 times negative 2 gives us an answer of negative 4.5. So that's one of our answers. So when x is negative 2, so when h of x, h of negative 2 is equal to negative 4.5. So we've done this one. Now we need to go and do when x is 0. So we're going to do h of 0 is equal to 2.25 times 0. Well, we know that 2.25 times 0 is 0. So this one is when h of 0, when x is substituting into 0, we get an answer as 0. So that's our second answer. And then our third one, when x is 3. So we're going to go ahead and solve this one more time. So h of x is 3. So h of 3, and then we're going to put 3 in for x. So 2.25 times 3 gives us an answer of 6.75. So we would read this one as h of 3 is equal to 6.75. So our answer on this one is 6.75. So when it shows when x is -2, 0, or 3, you have multiple problems that you have to solve, so you're going to have multiple answers. Now the other way that we use functions is when we have an answer. So in this case, notice this one says f of x is equal to 2x minus 10. Find x when the function of x is 6. So this time we're solving for x. We're actually having to solve the equation. So in this situation, we're going to put 6 in the place of f of x. So we're going to take f of x out. We're going to put 6 in. So we have 6 equals 2x minus 10. So in this situation, we're actually solving the equation. We solve this by adding 10 to both sides, which gives us 16 is equal to 2x. Then we need to divide both sides by 2, and we have x is equal to 8. So what this is when x is 8, so when f of x, when x is 8, we get an answer of 6. So we put 6 in as our answer kind of in our y spot. So our answer here is 8. All right, let's do another one like that one. So f of x is equal to 4x minus 3. When f of x is 21, so we're going to put 21 in place of f of x, and then we're going to solve. So 21 is equal to 4x minus 3. We're going to add 3, which gives us 24. And that gives us 4x. Divide both sides by 4, and we know that x is equal to 6. So our answer on this one is 6. So you've got two different types of problems. You've got one problem where you see f of x is equal, so you're solving the equation. And then on the other hand, you have something like when x is equal, so you're substituting it into the equation for x, and then you're just simplifying one side of the equation. So make sure that you take special note of that so that you know what to do in your homework here in a little bit. All right, so tonight I know the directions in the book talk about graphing, and they also talk about comparing your answer to the family function. Don't worry about that part. Don't do any of that part. Our focus today is just on solving functions. So either when x is equal to something or when f of x is equal to something, just like we did in our examples above. Make sure you ask questions if you have them. Otherwise, know that Mrs. Becker and I will be back on Monday, and we can help answer any of your questions then. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend, and we will be excited to see you all on Monday.